Weird science
is the revolution.
Green Lantern number 9, written by Jeremy Adams, with art by Monaco, Romeo Fajardo Jr., and Dave Sharp. So we have Hal going to this power spot that juiced up his ring with his fight with Sinestro. The Madam Sanders says, hey, why don't you go back to that spot? There might be some interesting stuff over there. So Hal goes back to that spot where he finds a hole and goes deep into that hole and finds a whole underground world of freaking, like, I'm telling you, it's Journey to the Center of the Earth, it feels like, for all the green that's down here. And don't worry, it's tied to the green too for some reason, because we gotta have that. But underneath this land, we have Tom Kalmaku, who people might remember as Pie Face. We don't call him that anymore, though. And back during Millennium, he became what we call a new Guardian, people with special powers that were brought together by the Guardians. But all that was pushed aside to where he even lost his power to make people the best versions of themselves. But for some reason recently, the Guardians, before they dispatched themselves from Oa, they said, hey, Tommy, we're tapping you back into the game here. We need you to freaking, connect with the green and have a gigantic Owen power battery underneath the Earth right now, because if things go sour with the United Federation of Planets, we need to have the Earth Lanterns have a full-ass power battery underneath the ground that's also hidden with the power of the green. Not like Green Lantern, the green like a swamp thing for some reason.
I just thought it was going to be the living flame, and you made fun of me. I think you might have gone with that better, but I don't mind it. I'll explain why. But what I love is when the Millennium deal, and he also says, I kind of forgot about it, but I remembered and kind of playing the idea that there's been a reboot and it's new continuity. So I kind of like
the idea where, like, they almost the idea of what we had with Wally West when he was brought back to continuity, when he touched people and they remembered their past continuity as well. So when the Guardians showed up to old Tom here, I could see that being a thing, because who knows whether Imperiex and the Millennium are still a thing in continuity. We say open timeline, but he could have just been made. He could have been made to forget and was just remembered, like he was tapped again, like a Manchurian candidate.
I like the way that Jeremy Adams explains it. It makes enough sense in the deal. But it's funny because in the Millennium event, his family was so upset. Like, he had to leave his family then. They were very upset about it. When he actually tells the story, do you see them in the background? It's like, I don't think they're going to be there for him when he goes back. Like, when he says, oh, shit, I got to go home. Like, he skedaddles out of there. I'm like, I don't think you have a home. I think your shit's on the front lawn, because they've had enough of this bullshit. I mean, just imagine, this is the second time, and this one even worse, of like, this little blue dude told me I have to go to this other side of the world and find something. And they're like, yeah, I think I'm done with you. Come on, kids. We're going to my mom's house is what I think happens. But he ends up doing this, and it's weird. But
it's totally weird.
Here's the thing.
Because even the idea where he lays it all out for Hal, the reason that he has a ring that he does right now is because of the Manhunter tech that was tapped into the power that he had with the residual of this Owen power battery. He was able to make it, but it's not a full ring. Here, I have a display for all of the Earth Lanterns, even though there are 6 rings here, and we have 7, including Jill Mullen. So maybe her ring's still different to the point where
she has that different ring, but it's weird. And I'll even go with the idea that as we go forward, something became very obvious to me by the end, where did the United Planets, do they not understand how things work? Because while they're manipulating and changing spectrums and things like that, I guess they don't understand that they could kind of call people back or actually deactivate because they're like, these rogue lanterns are just out and about, and they're like, yep, I don't know what to do about them, but they should be able to, like, this is a great way that they could have a separate core that's not connected to what the United Planets would. They seem to be a little lost with what to do with the other ones as well. It seems odd. But Jill Mullins might still have her other ring, so I don't mind that.
Exactly.
But you think they would have changed
deal that we don't fully understand, though. But even the idea, let's say the Owens, like the Guardians gave control of the Green Lantern Corps of the United Federation of Planets. That doesn't mean they have control of the way that the Guardians did, though, because the Guardians were connected to all the power.
But we don't know. That's where I wonder, and I wish that we knew or how we do it. But here's the thing, and I did reach out to Jeremy Adams just to get maybe a little bit of an inkling of things. And when you start this book, he ends up coming in, even the Philip Kennedy Johnson War Journal, where you end up having Hal, he's on Earth, it's quarantine, he can't leave. So you think, okay, well, there was originally, because this stuff even comes from the Jeffrey Thorne stuff and going back, all this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what was the end game? Was there an end game? Was this the end game? Was this going, how was this going to work originally? And what did they tell Jeremy Adams, how he was going to do this? And I asked him, he said they said nothing. Like, you end up where you have set up a thing where Hal Jordan,
right,
your main character, Green Lantern, you're already handicapped. And I'll give him credit. And a lot of people really love this book. We haven't liked it as much as some, but again, every time we get the Green Lantern, you had said it before, like it's always lights out. It's always something wrong. And when you start this off, you're starting a Dawn of DC with the most handicapped book out there of, hey, we're going to have Hal Jordan, but he doesn't even have a ring. He kind of develops one, but we're not going to be able to explain. And then he's stuck on Earth. And so with that, they got to this point where they just told him, get him off of Earth. And he had to come up with something. So I give him credit. I think he didn't, that's all he said was he had to come up with something on his own. He did at least think of something that might go with. I almost think that maybe because he seems to be a bit close, he might have asked Jeff Johns. I would. If I work with Jeff Johns with the Green Lantern stuff, I might say, hey, Jeff, can you give me some hints of what I could do here? And it doesn't work, but it does. At least it gets them off the planet, and it sets up an idea that you can have the Earth Lanterns then as a core of their own, then go off. And maybe John Stewart, because he has his, whatever he has, he wouldn't need one. And, the numbers are off. But I would, if we're going to get an idea of, hey, we're going to have a Green Lantern Corps, but it's just the Earth Lanterns, I'm in.
Maybe you're right. Maybe the idea is that John still doesn't need one once he's done with whatever War Journal is, and the sixth one will go to Joe Mullen.
Is there a possibility? Because the weird thing we're thinking of the opposite way of, this would have been something that before the Guardians would have set up, and maybe they weren't thinking that Joe Mullins would be involved.
No, man. This still, thing is, I want to think at one point this was set up a long time ago, but this feels, for everything they're setting up here, is recent.
Well, recent, but maybe they didn't think that she would be back from the loss. I don't know, but the John Stewart, if it's if it's recent enough, and they're like, well, John has his own living, deal, so we could go. So I don't mind it, but boy, if you ended up where you get the idea of all the Earth Lanterns coming together as a core, and they put those rings on, and it would be awesome. That's what I want.
It would be awesome. They become the new Guardians,
and you have to, and in the deal, and that's what they are. And the idea of it being, it has to be something, because you said this is the weird. Everything's jumbling. The idea that we don't know what the United Planets can or will be able to do but this sets up that it's a separate thing. It's the ring. They can't do anything to them with these rings, it seems. They have their own power batteries. So I like that setup a lot.
But, even the idea that, the one thing I did enjoy seeing here that, brought a lot of, clarity to things is that we still are dealing with Jeffrey Thorne's Green Lantern run, because even the main power battery on Oa that the United Federation plans are using, it is powered by the Godstorm, which when we saw the end of Jeffrey Thorne's run was changing lanterns into different emotional spectrums and stuff like that. So maybe with the power that they have with the Godstorm, you are able to change based on what you're what emotion you're giving out at that point, because you're tied to it directly from the Oa's main power battery. So you have that with this, and destroying the other lanterns we have in the universe to make sure that we have supremacy over that everything, and there's no other lantern corps out there that can oppose us.
I mean, and that's the thing. If you can turn these people into yellow lanterns, you don't want the actual yellow lanterns there to be saying hey, that's our thing, get away. They're just going to do the whole deal.
This whole time, we've been saying the emotional spectrum is wonky. So everything I just laid down there, where we destroy other cores, main power batteries, we have the Godstorm battery, which allows us to do whatever we want. It doesn't make, in my mind, the idea that Sinestro on Earth gets angry and becomes a Red Lantern.
Yeah, I get. It's weird. We'd have to figure out, because he did get that. It's weird. But in this, Hal actually realizes too, because, and the best, I think the funniest thing, it's not, but it makes sense, that Hal he can't get in his mind that the bad stuff is the United Planets. He thinks that they have to be warned. Shit's gone bad. There's these other sects going. He's like, I gotta get to tell them. But the idea that he says that, maybe they weren't Yellow Lanterns that blew up Kilowog. They were just Green Lanterns that were taking that emotional spectrum of yellow or whatever. And so that kind of gets Sinestro a little off the deal, and maybe to get him
off the hook,
involved as well. But in that though, it's wonky. It is. It's a weird thing. I never thought that we'd tie in Millennium and the New Guardians.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
And so you have that. It's tied into the green that you could maybe say the living flame can kind of be this is the entity of it, but it's just odd. And I just thought it was going to be living flame.
But even the idea feels weird, because all this time, I don't even know what we're dealing with, the entity of life itself, the White Lantern entity that powers it up. Because before, it was hidden on Earth, where Earth is the center of the universe. The Maltusians became the Guardians and said, no, look, Oa over here's the center of Earth to try to hide this thing over here so people didn't know about the entity and the center, where the real center of the universe is. And I just don't know where we are with the entity anymore. Like, I would think it might have gone dormant back on Earth, but people would know about that, so maybe it just went out. And even the idea of the life equation being split across with Kyle Rayner to all those different rings to be put together one day. It's a weird thing, just the idea that you have a Green Lantern power battery in the Earth right now for what it was before. But the idea of having rogue lanterns out there, the Earth trying to, like, the Earth Lanterns trying to take back the universe, that's bad.
Yeah, I think that a lot of this is not going to tie into a lot of the intricate details. I think this is trying to be like a dumbed-down version of, look, they have batteries, or a battery, they have rings, and they could be a core, and let's go with it, and maybe put a lot of the other things kind of aside, because Hal goes off into space thinking he's going to end up, oh my God, I got to get to the United Planets, and he kind of runs into a couple Green Lanterns he ran into before. They recognize him, and they attack him. They actually capture him. They capture him. Get him, boys! And they end up capturing him. And then this, I liked this whole thing, but this felt like it was rushed a little at this point. You have a lot of Tom. It was jumbled. You have a lot of deal, and it does get lost a little in translation, where there isn't even like a big thing. All it is Hal's like, oh, and then boom, 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 and now there's a tank, and it's Joe Mullins. I didn't have enough time to kind of process the scene enough that would be a cool-ass cliffhanger.
Even the scene leading up to it, where Howard's using his newly found ring to, warp it, back to, or wormhole his ass back to Oa and stuff like that, where his ring is slowing down. He doesn't understand why. Then all of a sudden you have a ship being destroyed in space, and the Green Lantern Corps, the United Federation Green Lantern Corps are there, and they realize, oh shit, this is Howard's running guy, let's take him down. And it just felt like a weird jump to where he's immediately taken out, back to Oa, everybody, and then he's being paraded around Oa to where Joe Mullins shows up in a tank and says, what, to get in?
Yeah, you need a lift? I love where Hal, because he's, pretty much like, suddenly he is attacked, and he's like, all right, I think I'll make a construct of me. That's about the lamest one you've ever made, Hal. And it's just like, and he does the thing I hate the most, too. The construct of Hal does that, clasping the hands together to use. It's like, it doesn't work. That doesn't hit as hard as just a punch. Come on, construct Hal. But yeah, when you get there and you see Joe Mullins show up, I'm like, all right, we saw in the backup last issue, you had Joe Mullins and Kyle Rayner. You have all these things going on. There are people that I saw that don't want Joe Mullins involved. And my whole thing of this is, I want them all involved. If Joe Mullins involved means that we also get Simon, that we also get Jessica, that we get Guy Gardner. I want them all. Yeah. I don't think there's any reason to keep any of them out. I want them all. Let's go. And that's exciting. Like you said, the idea that they are behind the scenes and causing trouble. And I like also in this where you have that battery and you have all those rings. This is one of the things, usually when you have a new writer on a book like Green Lantern things, they're going to play this opposite of, oh, I got to figure out how we could have less lanterns. I got to figure out how I can explain why we have so many Earth lanterns. And they do explain why the Guardians wanted that. And what I like, though, is it's instead of explaining it to get less, it's actually now of shit, let's get them all. Let's get them all together. And if we get a book where every lantern that the Earth Lanterns are together fighting, it'd be awesome because we don't ever get to see them.
It's such a weird idea, though, because we're trying to say that this instance right now, what's going on with the United Federation of Planets and the Godstorm battery that we have, and this is the reason that we have so many Earth Lanterns. But I'm like, we've had that for a while. We've waited years to get to it.
Just the thing, they said that we wanted all the Earth Lanterns because the Earth Lanterns don't follow the rules. I think it's funny because they gave Hal so much shit over these years, but I think this was set way back, just hey, do we need more Earth Lanterns? Well, we kind of get a couple of them because if something goes wrong at any point, they'll actually, save the day. They don't follow the rules like they should. It's kind of a weird play. But yeah, it's odd. Now that you think of it, too, I guess this battery and things could have been there, but it is a timing thing, too, with Tom. The idea, I hope that Tom hasn't been there for 50 years, or he definitely doesn't have his family left. But yeah, it's an odd play, but I think
this feels like something the Guardians gave, the Oa to the United Federation of Planets, went to Earth, tapped Tom, and said, we're doing this shit now.
Yeah, we're going to get out of here. We did this. We're tapping out, but we need to make sure if this does. They didn't have a lot of time to think it out. So we're bailing, so we're going to put this here in case things go wrong. But I kind of like it. I'm telling you, this is one of those things where you're either going to just say, I'm not saying you're going to say it, but if you're going okay, everything that looks like we're going to get away from and get to it. Like, I don't care how you do it, but at least he tried. He deep dove into something, thought it made sense, and did go. As opposed to, say, somebody like a Leah Williams, when you run into a dead-end Power Girl and you just have her punching star portals and reading minds. Like, I'd rather have this.
Star portals. It's like, what's your new name, Power Girl? Like, I'm America Chavez.
That's all it was. He's trying to make it work. He's trying to make something work, and by the end, it seems pretty cool. So I did like it. I'm not even going to that Sam Humphries shit, but at least we get Jessica Cruz saying record scratch, and also the idea that she is undercover and they have somebody on the inside, which is cool. But what would you give this?
I think the art is great throughout, including the backup. And the thing is, I'll have a few problems with how we get to certain places in our main Green Lantern story, but at least we got to places. The story is going somewhere, and we have an idea of all these things in the background that actually at least try to tie into previous continuity. Whether it works for you or not, it's a stretch at times. I still can enjoy, like, this issue, though. I'm not saying that all the problems are fixed with this. Like I said before, it's Sinestro just becoming a Red Lantern because emotional spectrum wonky. Big problem I've had with the series overall. This is a good issue that gets us places and is attempting to do as much as it can to figure out what's going on with the emotional spectrum, especially the Green Lantern Corps. 7.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm an 8.5. I liked it. And where I kind of came, and I was like, I was trying to think up something, and I'll tell you. It was kind of going to end up being like the anti-life equation that drives you nuts, like when you spell it out. But this was going to be my continuity equation. And I'm telling you, I was trying to like, this plus that might have sat. And then I just figured, screw that. Well, how I could explain it to you is when you get something like this, if the solution is less fucked up than the problem, which the problem that they gave him and the explanation trying to make it work, is so much worse and so much wonkier that this makes it better, and you go forward with it. So I say that it's good with me, and even
with the problems of the backup and stuff like that, where Jessica Cruz feels weird because Sam Humphries is a terrible writer, it's still good enough to know that we're getting to a point with all these Earth Lanterns going undercover and doing what they can to take out the United Federation of Planets, like in the way that they are. I'm like, that's interesting and cool.
Mm-hmm. And I can tell you, looking at it, I think that they get Sam Humphries because, hey, you did the Green Lanterns book.
Okay. You're not working right.
You're not doing anything. We haven't. And I think that what they probably told him, because you said it, Jessica Cruz hasn't been around for a bit. She doesn't do much. So, yeah, it makes sense to mention maybe the anxiety so that if somebody, like, we know it, so it ends up feeling like not even old hat, but boy, that is past. She's like, but somebody who's new might end up needing to know that at one point, and we find out she's undercover. So it does its thing. It does enough.
It's just one of
He's
those
just a bad writer. It just is not very good storytelling in this backup. It really isn't. It's kind of wonky.
It'd be like the idea when we have backups like, Guy Gardner, he's a hothead, or John Stewart's over here, I'm an architect and a Marine.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't need these little cliche bits of things. And the one thing, the character has moved past this, and the thing is, she can be what she needs to be right now.
She's really stressing the idea of everybody underestimate. Like, he goes too far because he says things that I don't really agree with. She's on the Justice League. The idea, people always underestimate me, and then breaks the fourth wall. You guys don't underestimate me, please. And I was saying, it was too much. All you have to say is, like, she's there. And like, boy. 2 years ago, I would have shit my pants right now because, boy, I was anxious. Boom, I'm not like that anymore. Boom, you could even have Theros because I'm sure that they would have gotten some sort of info on all the lanterns, especially the Earth lanterns, the way they're treating it. And he could have said, oh, so you're the one with the anxiety. And she's like, yeah, you want to see that bitch? And you see that she's not that anymore. Like, they better update my file. And even at the end, he's like half beaten up. We gotta update the file. See, that would have been good. You got that right, bitch. Like, she's the bitch
I don't think she's getting to where she needs to be with that.
You know, like that, like kicking him in. And he's like, no, it's one of those like, I like the cut of your jib. Like, you know what to say. You say your
ass the test.
Great. And then she's like, you got that, bitch. Keeps kicking him.
Like, beat the shit out of your boss. I like where you're coming from.
Yeah, I liked it though. I liked it.
Weird Science
is the revolution.